Hola, buenas tardes. Good afternoon. This is Julio with his chats. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a very incredible concept, which is not that difficult, but it's powerful. And things that are not that difficult sometimes are even more difficult because it's like so easy, but it's hard to do. I'm talking about things that can unite us as, let's say, Boricuas. And I'm speaking specifically to the Puerto Rican community. I consider myself part of the overall Latino community in the United States, understanding the Mexican Americans are the largest. Puerto Ricans, believe it or not, we're the second largest in the United States. And after this census, it's going to continue to grow. Right now, we're 5.5 million. It's probably going to definitely go beyond 6 million if they do it correctly. And it's going to continue to grow because of the childbearing age of the Puerto Rican woman, which is a little bit within a broader range than other Latinas. And then, of course, Central Americans are third, between Salvadorians, Guatemaltecos, Hondurans, all together. And then it goes to Cubans and Dominicans coming up, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is what I want to talk about. Puerto Ricans, right? We have something that a lot of other folks just don't understand. And that's everywhere you go, you see the Puerto Rican flag, right? You see Puerto Ricans, you go to Puerto Rico, we're in Puerto Rico, but we have the Puerto Rican flag everywhere. We wherever we live, and there's 5.5 million of us around the world, majority in the United States, we always have the Puerto Rican flag. And that's what unites us. That's supposed to bring us together. Whether we speak English or not, whether we have visited Puerto Rico or not, we're all basically that. So we have these parades all over the country, over 20-something parades, and when we've had them big, and then we go back to the same conditions that we're basically not the economic power, we're not the political power, and we're definitely not the cultural power that we should be in this country. Like, I've always been very critical of the fact that I've been in the Bronx all my life, and the fact that the Bronx should have always been the mecca of the Puerto Rican community, and they blew the chance. It hasn't happened. We're still trying to fight for it. I'm gonna get that Museo de la Salsa up, and I know Hartford is doing some stuff also to preserve the Puerto Rican diaspora experience here in the United States. But this basically should have been the Bronx, right? And just like Mexican Americans have a base, and the Chicanos have a base, and Cubans, Miami have a base, African Americans, Atlanta have a base. I've always pushed that Puerto Ricans need to have a base, and our base should have always been definitely the Bronx, definitely New York, but that has been changing. Now the situation in Florida, number of Puerto Ricans there. But wherever Puerto Ricans are at, one thing we do have in common is they're always divided. So we're like going to be 6 million. That's very powerful. The second largest Latino community in the country, Latinos being the largest ethnic minority in the United States. And yet we pull no power. I mean, look at the appointments that Biden is making. And I know he's making some with the Latinos, but in terms of what should be, and we need to continue to look at that. But forget about nationally. I'm talking about here in New York, there's not one Puerto Rican in a statewide position. There's not one Puerto Rican, not one Latino, both Latino or Puerto Rican in citywide or statewide position. So we could be growing, but no para ningún lado. So anyway, this is a message to all my Boricua brothers and sisters, okay? There is an issue that we started a while back after Hurricane Maria, which was the whole situation of how to help Puerto Rico, no matter what your political persuasion is. I know some of you feel that the best way to help Puerto Rico is to make it independent. And you know what? I feel the same way. And I've been feeling that way since I was, like 17, 18. And Puerto Rico's still not independent. And the situation continues to get worse for the working family in Puerto Rico, for the working poor in Puerto Rico, for the poor in Puerto Rico. So, we gotta think outside the box. We gotta think of other ways to, help it. And then, of course, those who believe statehood. Oh, yeah, no. So as we make Puerto Rico a state, things are gonna get better. We're gonna get all the benefits that we should have been getting. Bottom line is, listen, you can continue to go in either one of those directions, or keep it as is and try to make a better relationship with the United States and Congress. But we thought about doing something concrete, which was that if we eliminate the Jones Act, if we eliminate that abusive, I don't want to say the words that it's doing to Puerto Rico. If Puerto Rico was being victimized sexually, I mean, we're being raped in the worst form when you study what the Jones Act does to Puerto Rico and why it's so expensive to buy things in Puerto Rico and why we have some of the most unhealthiest foods and why we have such high obesity and how we have some of the problems that we have, because it all relates back down to the Jones Act. It relates to the fact that everything that comes into Puerto Rico, majority has to be imported. We've lost the whole agricultural thing, even though I'm glad that a lot of people are moving back into that. I know I am, in Puerto Rico. When I'm there, I eat a lot of things that are grown on the island, but todavía no estamos al nivel that we should be. We're still importing over 80% of the foods, probably. But after Maria, we were importing about 87% of the foods. Imagine 87% of the foods that are coming into Puerto Rico is being imported. So it has to be pasteurized, homogenized, and you name it, to keep it fresh. Bottom line, it's not organic, that's for sure. So we have this situation, and I can break it down further in terms of the Jones Act. I like to talk about, why are there so many guns in Puerto Rico? Why are so many, bullets in Puerto Rico? It's easier to buy a bullet in Puerto Rico than it's as easy to buy a bullet as to buy bubble gum. Why? Where are these arms coming from? Puerto Rico does not have a factory where we make arms. We don't have a factory to make bullets. They come from the outside. Puerto Rico's only 100 miles by 35. You can track anything that comes into the island. So why is it coming in? Is it coming with tourists coming in with maletas? No, it's coming in from the ocean, from the sea. So, that's one issue. And then you talk about the drug cartels. You talk about the drug situation in Puerto Rico. We don't grow coca. We grow mangoes. We grow bananas. We could do some great stuff to feed ourselves and to make ourselves feel good in terms of fruits and stuff. But we don't grow coca. So why is there so much cocaine in Puerto Rico? Where does it come from? It doesn't come again with, people trying to say, oh yeah, well, pasan con maleta, a package. It comes in by sea. It comes in by water. So who controls those waterways? Just like in the old days mercantile, period. Who controls the waterways controls a lot of power. In Puerto Rico, we don't control the waterways. We can't make a deal with Dominican Republic, everybody else, to bring something into Puerto Rico in a ship, because if it's not a U.S. ship with 77% of the crew that's U.S. and the ship was built in the U.S., it can't dock in Puerto Rico. It has to go to Jacksonville, Florida. And there, then they have to unload it, reload it, and then goes back to Puerto Rico. Who do you think pays for that? So I'm bringing both issues together. Whether you're Puerto Rican that believes in statehood, independence, or commonwealth, whether you're Puerto Rican that's gay, straight, trans, whatever. If you are a senior Puerto Rican like myself, more senior like some of my boys, or less senior, or you're just a freaking young blood, man, and under millennial group, that you still are spending all your time, on the internet and playing around and still haven't defined yourself. But you feel one thing. When you see the Puerto Rican flag, what do you feel? You feel good, right? When you see that flag, man, it makes you feel good. That's why you have it on your cars. That's why you have it on your windows. That's why some of you have it tattooed, And I'm talking about all generations. My grandchildren, born here, don't speak a lot of Spanish. Always fighting with them. But they live away, so it's a hard fight. But they understand. I took my grandson to the Puerto Rican Day Parade when we marched with Lakla. And my grandson, his thing went viral because you should have seen it. When he grabbed that flag, he was dancing. He was dancing salsa. It's in the blood, man. It's in the genes. We have it. So if we have that passion for that flag, which represents an island, which is our nation, that's our homeland. Whether you were born in Puerto Rico, whether you speak Spanish, whether you ever visited Puerto Rico, man, I'm going to be like the Jews. If you got 1/5 blood that comes from your father, mother, grandparent, whatever, guess what? Puerto Rico belongs to you as well. That's your island. That's your homeland. So how do we protect that homeland? So if we all come around this one issue, no matter what you believe, what political perspective you believe, if you believe that Puerto Rico should stop being raped in the most outlandish way by this law, that doesn't apply to other territories, but applies to Puerto Rico, then join us. Respect, right? And we demand justice. Respect and justice for Puerto Rico. Respect and justice for Puerto Rico. Go to our Facebook page. Become a friend. We should have thousands of friends on that. And it doesn't matter what you're involved in. You could be involved in 50 other Puerto Rican organizations that are trying to make a change in Puerto Rico for whatever you believe. But visit us. Respect and justice of Puerto Rico. Like us. Stay in touch with us, because we're planning some stuff. That's going to be key. And all I ask of you, wherever you are, I'm not asking you to go to demonstration. I'm not asking you to give money, at least not yet. I'm not asking you to do anything other than to pick up the phone wherever you live. Find out who's your congressperson. They don't have to be Puerto Rican. It's whoever you live. Kansas, South Dakota, Florida, California, wherever Puerto Ricans are at, and we're in every state. Call your local congressman's office and call your 2 senators in that state. And just tell them one thing. Tell them, listen, I'm a constituent. I live in your state. And I just want to know, where do you stand on the issue of the Jones Act regarding Puerto Rico? I'm Puerto Rican. My parents are Puerto Rican, or my grandparents are Puerto Rican. And I know that that's an issue that affects, here's the key, 3.5 million U.S. citizens, that this issue is so bad that it's a human rights issue. That's it. Tell them that in your own words. Bring it up like that. And just tell them, you just want to know where they stand on this. Just let's get that name, the Jones Act, into the verbiage of every single one of those hundreds of Congress people and those senators from those 50 states, that they at least hear. We were trying to get that into the debates when there were 12 of them running. We were sending emails to all of them. And the only one that got close to mention that was Bernie. That's why I was fighting so much to get him in, because he had the best issues on Puerto Rico. So it never got into any of the debates. The whole immigration issue was the main issue when it came to, Latinos, not understanding that we're not a homogeneous community, and Puerto Ricans, because we're citizens, we have other issues. And the issues they don't want to talk about is the fact that we're a colony. And because we're a colony, that has to change. And until the status changes, which I'm for, I want to start building something that's concrete. So please, go to our Facebook page, Respect and Justice for Puerto Rico. Give us ideas. Let's talk. Let's do things. But that one especially, reach out to all your folks in the state that you live, to your congressperson. That's easy to find out through the internet, or just make a phone call, 411, right? And just get the name of the congressperson. Call them up. You don't have to get into no big debate. You don't have to, write letters. Just call them. That's first step. Let's do that around the country, wherever we are at. Donde quiera que estemos nosotros, vamos a hacer esa. Solamente llamar con los congresistas tuyos, el congresista que sea, y los 2 senadores. Dile que tú estás viviendo en el estado de ellos. Tú quieres saber qué es la posición de ellos sobre la situación de la ley Jones en Puerto Rico. Una isla donde hay 3.5 millones de ciudadanos americanos. Y hay un abuso con esa ley. Tú quieres saber dónde ellos están con esa ley. That's it, man. English, Spanish, Spanglish, gibberish, whichever way you want to do it. And if you're sophisticated, you want to write a letter, hey, write on. But let us know. Post it. Put stuff up on Respect and Justice of Puerto Rico. Because if we unite on that, remember what I'm saying? If we unite on that, on Respect and Justice of Puerto Rico, which could bring us all together, because that's one issue that we should all be involved in, right? Then we can continue to form ourselves as a base that's going to be respected. And I guarantee you that the next time someone is running for president, they will be reaching out to the Puerto Ricans. You will be seeing more Puerto Ricans on CNN giving, details. You will see them on CNBC, not just on Juan Gonzalez on Democracy Now! You'll be hearing more, because then we would have allowed ourselves to be respected. And we cannot be respected until we respect ourselves. And we can't respect ourselves if we allow our island, where our forefathers are from, where some of us were born, but whether you were born there or not, if you have 1/5 Puerto Rican, that island belongs to you. And if you can't do something to change that abuse, then you're not respecting yourself. And if we don't respect ourselves, how do we expect others to respect us? So again, I'm making that plea, and this is why I had to do this, because the other day I did a presentation for LACLA on the Jones Act, and that motivated me to think more and more of what we need to do aside from what we're doing right now. So I need you to please, man, help out with this issue, because in the process, we're helping ourselves, and we're helping our children, and we're helping the grandchildren that are coming after them, because we're finally going to demonstrate that the Puerto Rican community here in the United States is a power that's been sleeping, and it's time to wake up. Love you guys. Aquí from Rebel Headquarters in the South Bronx, Julio signing off. Share this.